Hi guys, it's me, Rainbow Berry Shortcake Fan 25, formerly known as AP1, AP, or you can call me Annalisa Rosetta. Today we're reading Who's Dolly Parton by True Kelly, illustrated by Stephen Marchesi. Set under the guitar. And we have the contents, chapters 1 through 10. And this is number 1, Who is Dolly Parton? Number 4, The Parton Family. Number 20, pages 1 is Who is Dolly Parton? Pages 4 is the Parton Family. Pages 20, Country Roots. Pages 31 is Radio Days. Pages 42 is Nashville. Pages 52 is A Star is Born. Pages 66 is Bigger Dreams. Pages 73 is Hollywood Dolly. Pages 84 is Dollywood Dolly. Pages 91 is Living Legend. Pages 98 is Still Dreaming. Pages 102 is Timelines. Pages 4, and last but not least, pages 104 is bibliography. I said it. Who is Dolly Parton? In Knoxville, Tennessee, in 1956, a tiny girl with freckles stood alone and stared at the microphone. She was about to sing on the radio for the first time. She glanced at her uncle, Bill, off stage, and then looked out at the crowd. She was scared. All those eyes staring at her. Was the shy 10-year-old country girl ready for this? There were so many people, and thousands more would be listening on their radio. It was her dream to do this, but now she wanted to run off the stage. Still, she knew this might be her only chance. She also knew her family was counting on her. She took a shaky breath and began to sing. Said it. Her voice was thin and wobbly. Slowly it grew stronger. Soon she was belting out her song. Almost before she finished, the crowd began cheering and clapping. They loved her. They loved her singing. They wanted more. From that moment, Dolly Parton wanted more too. She wanted to be a star, dream big, and big things can happen. Those words would guide her throughout her life. Even though she is only about 5 feet tall, Dolly stands out in any crowd with her curvy figure, glittery clothes, and big blonde wigs, just like Barbie dolls. I love them. Dolly likes how she looks. She doesn't care what other people think. She has always been true to herself. Her upbeat, down-home, honest, and funny personality charms everyone. There's no one else like her. Chapter 1. The Parton Family. Dolly grew up in a large, poor family in Tennessee. A.V. Lee Owens and Robert Lee Parton, Dolly's parents, married in 1939 when Dolly grew up in a large, poor family in Tennessee. A.V. Lee Owens and Robert Lee Parton, Dolly's parents, married in 1939 when A.V. Lee was only 15 and Lee was 17. They rented a log cabin far out in the woods. A.V. Lee hated it and moved back with her parents. There, she had her first baby, Willa Dean. After a year, A.V. Lee and Lee got back together. They moved into a rented shack in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. Lee was a hardworking farmer. He grew tobacco, beans, corn, potatoes, and turnips. But he was a sharecropper. Sharecropping meant that Dolly's dad didn't own the land and had to share about half of the money from his crops with the landowner. It was a hard way to support a family, and soon another baby, David, came along. And then another, Denver. By now, the five Partons had moved to a one-room cabin on the bank of the Little Pigeon River in East Tennessee. They didn't have electricity, running water, or an indoor bathroom. That's sad. On one snowy winter night, someone went to get the doctor. Avie Lee's fourth baby was on the way. Doc Thomas rode on horseback to the cabin where Dolly Parton was born on January 19th, 1946. The Partons had no money, so they paid the doctor with a bag of cornmeal. That was a good trade. While Dolly was growing up, the Parton family moved several times. Once they lived so far out in the woods that their nearest neighbors were 2 miles away. The Partons had no radio, newspapers, or TV. They counted on their neighbors for news and for help in tough times. To go visiting, to church, or to school, they had to cross a river on a rope bridge and walk. When Dolly was 4, the Partons bought a farm. It was run down, but it was theirs. They stayed there until Dolly was 10. 3 or 4 Parton kids slept in one bed with all their clothes on. The Great Smoky Mountains, Tennessee, Knoxville, Sevierville, Little Pigeon River, Great Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. The Smokies are part of the Appalachian Mountain Range. They are named for the fog that often hangs over them. They run along the Tennessee-North Carolina border in the southeastern United States. The highest peak is Clingman Dome at 6,643 feet. Cherokee Indians lived in the forests and foothills of the Smokies until settlers from Europe forced them out. Many of the settlers were Scotch-Irish. They lived in simple log cabins and farmed in the mountain valleys. Music and religion were very important and helped bring isolated country people together from the depression through the 1950s. The area was desperately poor. People from the depression through the 1950s. The area was desperately poor. People started to leave because there were so few jobs. Today's tourism has helped the area with attractions like the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and Dollywood. Okay, the cabin walls were covered with newspapers instead of wallpaper. Dolly liked to read the walls. Dolly said later that they had 2 rooms and a path and running water. And if you were willing to run to get it, Dolly said later that they had 2 rooms and a path and running water. If you were willing to run to get it, she meant that the kids had to run and fetch water from the outside. They couldn't just go to a sink and turn on a faucet. Lee did all he could to keep his family fed. He fished and hunted, and everyone ate what nature provided: rabbit, squirrel, groundhog, turtle, or bear. He grew vegetables and kept bees. Almost the only foods they bought were coffee and sugar. Avie Lee worked really hard too. Avie Lee worked really hard too by canning, pickling, making clothes, and caring for the children. She was often sick. Her hard life was wearing down. She almost died giving birth to her next child, and a baby. Little Larry did not make it. Losing Larry was terribly sad for everyone, but especially Dolly. Dolly sat by Larry's grave for 4 hours. Her mother had said that Larry would be Dolly's special baby to care for. It was a custom in big families for an older child to make special care of one of the younger ones. Dolly had been her big sister, Willadine's special baby. The only toys that the Parton kids had were homemade. Lee made wooden wagons and cardboard box sleds. Avie Lee made paper dolls and doll houses and trains from old oatmeal boxes and matchboxes and spools. Dolly's mom once made her a corncob doll called Tiny Tasseltop. People said that Dolly's first song was about her. When Dolly was 5, Avie Lee wrote Appalachian Mountain Music. Appalachian music is storytelling music. Whenever people got together, they played music and sang about their own lives and problems. The songs told of loneliness, hardship, sadness, religion, and lost love. Dolly wrote and sang many of these kinds of songs, such as Joshua, a song about a lonely man and woman who find love, just like how Wally and Eve did in the movie WALL-E. Down one of Dolly's songs. It was an unusual song for a little girl to sing. The title was "Life Doesn't Mean That Much to Me." Many of Dolly's relatives loved music. Her grandfather was a preacher who also taught and wrote music. Dolly's great grandmother played an instrument called the dulcimer and made up songs. She sang old Irish and British style folk songs. Music was a big part of life for the people of the Smoky Mountains. Early on, everyone in Dolly's family noticed how musical she was. Her grandfather, Jake, said Dolly started singing as soon as she quit crying. She also loved singing with her sisters in church. Dolly sometimes forced her sisters, Stella and Cassie, to sing back up the songs she had made up. Dolly put a tin can on a stick and pretended it was a microphone. The porch was a stage. She put on shows for the chicken and any of her brothers and sisters she could trap. Her biggest dream was to be on the Grand Ole Opry, the famous country music radio show. Already little Dolly dreamed big. Grand Ole Opry, Johnny Cash. The Grand Ole Opry is a radio show in Nashville. It plays bluegrass, folk, country, gospel, and country rock. Since 1925, people in most of the United States and parts of Canada have listened to it every week. The show is still put on live every week on radio and TV. Top country stars perform. Many got their start on the show. Legends like Patsy Cline, Hank Williams, and Johnny Cash. Today top Opry stars include Dolly Parton, Reba McIntyre, Carrie Underwood, Garth Brooks, and Rascal Flatts. Chapter 2. Country Roots. Dolly's parents didn't have much time for their kids. They worked so hard just to survive. It was a struggle to buy new shoes each year for 12 children. The Parton kids invented their own fun. Dolly remembers trying June bugs to a string and calling them electric kites. The kids were outdoors all the time. They ran barefoot all summer. Dolly was a tomboy. Once Dolly jumped over a fence and cut her foot so badly her toes were barely hanging on. Avie Lee sewed them back on and they healed fine. I wouldn't want that to happen, do I, kids? Yeah, kids. The Parton girls used purple pokeberries to paint bracelets and wrist watches on their arms. They painted what they called Jesus sandals on their feet and pretended to be people from the Bible. Dolly wanted to work in a beauty salon. Pokeberries made good lipstick. Her mother didn't always approve. Dolly knew she did not want to stay on the farm. She hated working in the fields. Dolly thought of an escape plan. She got her brothers and sisters to help her dig a hole. For months, they kept on digging. Dolly's plan was to dig all the way to China. China's a good place, and I love China. Don't you, kids? Yeah, kids. Okay. Let me start back. Most of Dolly's brothers and sisters are creative and musical. Stella, Randy, Floyd, Frida, and Rachel are all performers and songwriters. Willadine is an author and poet. Dolly said she's like a second mother to all her brothers and sisters. Cassie works for Dolly, managing her properties. Bobby and David are both builders. Denver, a farmer, named his first daughter after Dolly. Dolly and her brothers and sisters walked 2 miles to school every day. The school had 8 grades and only 15 students. Most of them were Partons. The school had 8 grades and only 15 students. Most of them were Partons. Most of them were Partons. Dolly met 7-year-old Judy Ogle there. They became best friends for life. Judy wrote down Dolly's songs for her. Dolly never learned to read music, but for that, Judy still helps Dolly today. They have been best friends for over 55 years. Dolly hated school. She was too fidgety to sit quietly at her desk. She'd bang her heels on the desk just to make noise. She got up to sharpen her pencil 1,000 times a day. She was the class clown. She was always being punished. Even though she hated school, Dolly loved to read. Fairy tales were her favorite, but she read everything she could get her hands on. Catalogs, the Farmer's Almanac, the Bible, and even the funeral. Okay, so since my storage was full, I'm going to start over. One day, when Dolly was 9, the school burned down. Luckily, nobody was inside at the time, but it meant that Dolly had to go to a bigger school farther away. There were richer kids at the new school. They looked down their noses at the Partons. They called Dolly Rag Top. She was embarrassed to be so poor, but she never let it show. One morning, the teacher asked the kids to each tell what they had for breakfast. One by one, they listed fruit juices, bacon and eggs, cereal and toast. Dolly never had more than plain biscuits and gravy, and she knew the others would make fun of that. So when her turn came, She made up a big fancy breakfast of eggs, bacon, oatmeal, orange juice, and toast. Then she started to worry. Her brother Denver was in the same class, and Denver never lied. What would he say? Well, when it was his turn, Denver just looked hard at his sister and said, I had the same thing Dolly had. And when Dolly needed a new winter coat, her mom made one out of scraps of cloth. The coat had so many beautiful colors, like the colors of a rainbow. Dolly knew how much love her mother had put into sewing it. It was the most gorgeous coat Dolly had ever seen. She couldn't wait to wear it to school, but when she did, the other kids made fun of her. Dolly was crushed. Years later, she wrote a children's book and a song about it. The Coat of Many Colors is still Dolly's favorite song. Her dad cried when he first heard it. Chapter 3, Radio Days. No matter what the kids at school thought, Dolly's family was always proud of her. They saw that she was special and talented, and they did a lot to help her succeed. Uncle Louis noticed Dolly singing all the time and playing a guitar she had made for herself. When she was about 8, he gave her a guitar. It was an old one, but it was real. Dolly's Uncle Bill Owens was a musician. He wanted to help Dolly too. He got her a chance to sing on the Cass Walker radio show in Knoxville, Tennessee, 40 miles away. Dolly had wanted to be on that show since going there on a class field trip. Cass Walker watched the small 10-year-old stand up to the microphone and sing a church song. The audience loved her. Cass hired her on the spot. Dolly sang on the show on Saturdays, during vacations, and all summer. Sometimes she even skipped school to perform. Soon Cass Walker also had a TV show, and Dolly got to be on it. But Dolly's family couldn't watch her because they didn't have a TV. Once Cass Walker did a public city stunt before his show. He dared 50 people to climb a 50-foot pole to get a $50 bill at the top. The pole had grease on it and it was very slippery. No one could do it. Oh dear. Dolly had an idea. After she got herself all wet, she rolled around in sand. Then she scooted right up the pole and grabbed the money. It was enough to buy her family a TV. What would Dolly have done without her family? Uncle Bill drove Dolly to her shows. Uncle Louis took Dolly to make tapes of her songs and sent them to record companies and the Grand Ole Opry. Uncle Bill helped Dolly to write a song, Puppy Love. Another uncle, John Henry, paid for Dolly and her grandmother to go to Louisiana so Dolly could record the song into a studio. It was the first time either of them had been out of Tennessee. It was a hard trip. They missed the bus in Alabama. What would they do now? They didn't even have money for food. Somehow, Dolly and her grandma got to the studio and back, and the record was made. I think we've got to stop recording now because it's getting late, and my phone storage is getting full, and I don't want it to explode like my mom's phone. Good night.
Hey, it's me, Annalisa. we stopped by page 35 yesterday night because it was getting late. So anyways, we're starting back at page 36 because I gotta get this done. So anyways, let's go. The Cass Walker radio show. Cass Walker started the radio show to advertise his grocery stores. He hired many well-known country, gospel, and bluegrass musicians to perform in person. The Everly Brothers, who were teenage stars, were often on the show in the mid-1950s. That must have made Dolly want to be on the show even more. Dolly was still singing on the Cass Walker show. She was only 13 when she moved with her Aunt Estelle near Knoxville to be closer to the show. Uncle Bill took Dolly to Nashville. Uncle Bill took Dolly to Nashville to try to get her on the Grand Ole Opry. It was almost impossible because she was so young. Backstage before the show, Uncle Bill begged the performers to let Dolly go on. One of them let Dolly take his place. This was Dolly's biggest break so far. The famous singing star Johnny Cash introduced Dolly, and she sang, "You gotta be my baby." 4,000 people were there. She had three encores. She had three encores. Dolly's dreams were coming true. Uncle Bill and Dolly made more trips to Nashville. They wrote songs together for a music company. They made a record for Mercury Records in 1962, but it didn't. They made a record for Mercury Records in 1962, but it didn't do that well. They were barely making enough money to get by. Dolly wanted to go home to graduate from high school just to show she could. Dolly still hated school. She wasn't popular and was shy around boys. Dolly thought she was ugly and she needed lots of makeup and powder. She was barely 5 feet tall. To look taller, she teased her bleached hair to be the biggest hair in school. She liked to look like a showgirl, but the other girls thought she looked trashy. Well, that wasn't nice. Dolly's love of music helped her survive. Dolly and Judy Ogle, still her best friend, played drums in the marching band. They wrote songs together during drum practice. In 1964, Dolly graduated from Sevier County High School. She was the first in her family to get a high school diploma. They were very proud of her. After the graduation, her classmates all met and announced their plans for the future. Dolly stood and said, "I'm going to Nashville, and I'm going to be a star." All her classmates burst out laughing. All that. It's not nice. Chapter 4, Nashville. The day after graduation, 18-year-old Dolly said goodbye to her family and got on the bus to Nashville. She carried paper bags full of stuff and a bag of biscuits. She cried for the whole 200-mile trip. Why go to Nashville? Memphis, Jackson, Clarksville, Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Tennessee. Nashville is the capital of Tennessee, but it's most famous as a center for country music. It is home to the Grand Ole Opry. One part of the city, called Music Row, has hundreds of country, gospel, and Christian music companies. It has recording studios, music publishers, labels, and radio stations. There are many clubs and places to hear and play music. The Country Music Hall of Fame in Museum is there, and the Country Music Awards Music Festival is held there every year. Dolly moved in with her uncle and Dolly moved in with her Uncle Bill and his wife and baby until she could get to work and find a place of her own. On her first day in Nashville, Dolly was waiting for her laundry in front of a wishy-washy laundromat when a handsome stranger called out to her, "Y'all gonna get sunburnt out there, little lady?" Dolly was such a country girl. She didn't know she shouldn't speak to strangers. That was how she met Caldine, her future husband. They started dating, but then Carl joined the army and was away for 2 years. Dolly's best friend Judy was away in the Air Force. Dolly was terribly lonely and homesick. Meanwhile, Uncle Bill helped Dolly meet more people in the music business. Every day Dolly knocked on doors and tried to give away tapes of her songs. No luck. She took waitress and office jobs to get by. Dolly finally got work singing on a local TV show at 5 a.m. Every morning it paid at 5 a.m. every morning. It paid enough for her to rent her own place, but Dolly had hardly any money left over for food. For food. Sometimes she ate ketchup, mustard, and water soup. Dolly was so hungry that she went into hotels and took leftovers from trays that people had put in the halls. On a visit home, everyone was shocked how skinny she was. Dolly and Uncle Bill headed out in his old station wagon to find places where they could perform. They often slept in the car, Uncle Bill in front and Dolly in back. They played in bars. Some places had chicken wire to protect performers from things thrown by the audience. Dolly was exhausted but still managed to write songs every day. She wrote over 100 songs in 3 years, some of them with Bill, also known as Uncle Bill or whatever. Dolly didn't just write love songs. She wrote about the ups and downs of country life, motherhood, children, mental illness, poverty, birth and death. Less than 2 years after high school, Dolly got to record with Bill for Monument Records, an important record in label in Nashville. Their records didn't do well, but Dolly was asked to appear on a TV show, Chicago Bandstand. Well, Monument Records, yes. Dolly flew there. It was her first time on an airplane. Dolly hated it. She never wanted to fly again. She still doesn't like it today. Slowly, Dolly was learning the business and of music, as well as writing and performing. Famous country singers Hank Williams Jr. and Kitty Wells recorded 2 of Dolly's songs. Dolly sang backup on a hit record for a well-known singer named Bill Phillips. He's a well-known singer, you kids. Yeah, kids. Her name wasn't on the label. People wondered who had the clear mystery voice. People were starting to notice Dolly. In 1965, Carl got back from the army. He and Dolly were still in love, and they wanted to get married. Dolly's record company thought it was a bad idea because she might lose fans if she had a husband. So Dolly and Carl got married secretly on May 30th, 1966 in Ringgold, Georgia. Carl has always been a very private man. Unlike Dolly, he doesn't like being in the spotlight. In fact, he has rarely even seen Dolly perform. Carl ran a road paving business in Nashville. Dolly was busy with her career and was often away from home, so they couldn't spend much time together. Most couples don't live this way. gossip newspapers have always found their marriage very interesting. However, Dolly and Carl have been together for over 45 years. Dolly says, "We're really proud of our marriage. It's the first for both of us and the last." Chapter 5. In 1967, very few country music stars were women. Dolly was ready to fill the gap. Porter Wagner, a country music entertainer, had a very successful TV show. His girl singer, Norma Jean, left to get married, so Porter needed a new singer. Dolly and about 20 others tried out for the job. Porter liked Dolly's personality, and he hired her. The Porter Wagner Show. From 1960 to 1981, Porter Wagner toured the United States by bus from town to town with his TV country variety show. People loved the country music and corny jokes. Porter dressed in flashy clothes. He had pink and purple suits covered with rhinestones. Porter and his band, the Wagon Masters, entertained over 3 million viewers. He sang duets with his gal singer, Norma Jean, until Dolly replaced her. At first, Porter's audience was upset. They missed Norma Jean. They heckled Dolly and she left the stage in tears. Dolly suffered for 6 months, but she stuck it out. Over time, the audience grew to love her. She ended up working with Porter for 7 years. She later said it was the hardest and worst period of her life. But she also said those years were the most productive and growth-filled ones. Yeah, that it was so good. Dolly did 100 shows a year with Porter, plus recording sessions. They might tape 2 TV shows in an hour. Porter was hospitalized for stress more than once. Dolly got only a few hours sleep each night. Sometimes she kept in her makeup and wig so she could get back to work early the next morning. Even with this schedule, she kept writing songs. Over the course of her career, she has written over 3,000. Dolly learned a lot from Porter Wagner. He taught her to be a professional and to always look like a star. In 1967, Dolly recorded a duet with Porter for RCA Records. It was in the top 10 country recording. 13 more hit duets followed, and many 13 more hit duets followed, and many awards. Dolly made enough money to buy a Cadillac. It was a big fancy car and very exciting for a country girl. She had never had a car before and was a terrible driver, which made it even more exciting. Then Dolly was asked to record an album without Porter. Then Dolly was asked to record an album without Porter. This was an amazing chance. Okay, so Dolly drove her new car to the recording. Dolly drove her new car to the recording studio and crashed it into a brick wall in the studio parking lot. Dolly forgot to use the brakes, but luckily she wasn't hurt. Brakes were still falling on the hood as Dolly strolled into the studio as if nothing had happened. After the recording was done, everyone left and saw the smashed Cadillac stuck in the wall. What? Whose car is it? Whose car was it? Dolly was too smart to let on that it was hers. Now Dolly and Carl were able to buy a 2-story house south of Nashville. They were not able to have any children of their own, but they took in 5 of her younger brothers and sisters. They called Dolly Aunt Granny. Dolly's sister, Stella, took care of the kids while Dolly worked to support everybody. Only 3 years after she first went to Nashville, Dolly's hometown declared Dolly Parton Day. 7,000 people in Sevierville came to a parade in her honor. Some of her high school classmates must have been in the crowd. They didn't laugh at her now. Dolly was doing exactly what she said she would. She was becoming a star. I'd love to be a star, huh? Dolly had a new hit album. Hello, I'm Dolly. The song Dumb Blonde was on that album. The word said, "'Cause this dumb blonde ain't nobody's fool." And Dolly was talking about herself because she was nobody's fool. Because she certainly was nobody's fool. In 1968, Dolly's album Just Because I'm a Woman was another hit. Dolly often sang about strong women. Ideas for songs often came to Dolly at night. By morning, she might have 10 new by morning she might have 10 new songs. There were songs about memories, feelings, country life, and the hardships of being poor. She wrote songs about her own problems too. She said as soon as she did, the problems went away. Dolly liked to sing tear-jerker songs that could make people cry. One song, Silver Sandals, was about a crippled girl who swaps her crutches for silver sandals so she can climb the golden stairs to heaven. The women's movement. By the 1960s, many women were no longer happy only being housewives and mothers. They wanted jobs. Jobs that up to that point had been considered men's jobs. Why couldn't more women be doctors, politicians, engineers, or scientists, or truck drivers, or carpenters, or police officers? Women also wanted the same pay that men got for doing the same job. The women's movement, also known as women's liberation or the feminist movement, worked to make all of this happen. Laws were passed to treat women fairly, and health care changed to better serve women's needs. Today, all of society owes much to the women's movement. At age 23, Dolly's long-held dream came true. She joined the cast of the Grand Ole Opry. Porter and Dolly did more duet albums, TV, and concerts. Porter was also Dolly's manager. He had wanted her to become a star, but now she was getting to be a bigger star than he was. But now she was getting to be a bigger star than he was. Songs that she wrote were more popular than his. That wasn't easy for Porter. In 1971, Dolly had a #1 country hit, Joshua. It was a touching song about a lonely man and woman who fall in love. The same year, Dolly sang Coat of Many Colors about the beautiful coat Avie Lee had made so long ago. In 1973, she had her biggest hit so far, Jolene, about about a beautiful woman who takes away someone else's sweetheart. Things were happening fast. In one year, Dolly came out with 5 albums. 2 of them were duets with Porter. All were big hits. Suddenly, Dolly had money, lots of money. She was able to buy her parents a house and her mother her first car. Meanwhile, Dolly and Porter were not getting along. They fought and yelled at each other. Finally, they split up. Porter was bitter, but not Dolly. She was grateful to Porter for all that he had done. She wrote a song about him. I will always love you. It was number 1 on the country charts. Okay, chapter 6. Bigger Dreams. Around 1976, Dolly found a new big-time Hollywood manager, Sandy Gallin. He managed stars like Cher. Dolly got an apartment in Los Angeles, like Cher and the bobbleheads. I love bobbleheads. Sandy thought she should branch out into pop music and not just do country music. He was right. Dolly soon had her first million-selling record, Here You Come Again. In 1979, it won a Grammy Award for Best Country Female Vocal Performance. Winning a Grammy is as important to musicians as winning an Oscar is to actors. She also had her own TV show, Dolly, in the 1980s, and often appeared on other TV shows like The Tonight Show, Cher, and Hollywood Squares. Dolly toured in London, Sweden, Alaska, and Hawaii. She was working so hard she lost her voice. Dolly had to cancel a lot of shows as well as her new TV show to rest her voice. Dolly, Carl, and Dolly's 5 younger brothers and sisters moved to a 23-room mansion outside Nashville. Oh dear. Carl, who had retired, helped build it. Willow Lake Plantation was their dream house with a swimming pool and a lot of land. Don't mention it. In 1977, Dolly formed a band called Gypsy Fever with some of her family. Since Dolly still hated to fly, the band went on tour in a very fancy bus called the Coach of Many Colors. It was pink, purple, and silver on the outside. Inside was yellow, bright pink, and orange. There was a kitchen, a dining area, a shower with a tiny tub, a lounge, a private suite with a queen bed and prayer altar and bunk beds for the driver and guests. The bus also had closets. For wigs and costumes. Dolly's instruments. Dolly doesn't just play guitar. She can also play piano, banjo, drums, saxophone, recorder, auto harp, bass guitar, dulcimer, fiddle, like the fiddlesticks, harmonica, and penny whistle. She taught herself to play them all. Many of the instruments Dolly plays are old-time country instruments. The dulcimer is an instrument that Dolly's grandmother had played. It has strings like a guitar and is played held flat on the lap. It's also called a hot fiddle, like a fiddlestick, such as in the 3 Little Pigs. And a cosmetic area. Dolly liked staying in the bus much more than in fancy hotel room. Dolly and Gypsy Fever had to fly to perform in England. The British people loved Dolly. She even performed for and met Queen Elizabeth II of England. Dolly said that the Queen wore just as much jewelry as I did, thought maybe she was a little tastier with it. Even meeting the Queen, Dolly wore a big blonde wig and dressed as flashy as usual, similar than strawberry shortcake, because I love strawberry shortcake. Dolly liked herself the way she was. She joked, It takes a lot of money to look this cheap. It takes a lot of money to look this cheap. Dolly continued to put out many more big hits and collect many awards for her special mix of pop and country. She said, I'm not leaving country, I'm just taking it with me. So where did I take off? Here. Right, so in 1978, she was named Country Music Association's Entertainer of the Year. She wasn't just a star, but now she was a superstar. She wasn't just a star, now she was a superstar. Stardom came with problems. Porter Wagner was unhappy that he wasn't getting a share of Dolly's success. He badmouthed her and sued her for a lot of money. There were battles in court which wore Dolly down. Gossip magazines were hard on her because she was gaining weight. Dolly loved her fried chicken, especially when she was under stress. But Dolly still kept on dreaming. She was a singing star. She was a TV star. What else could she do? What about movies? What about Hollywood? Chapter 7. Hollywood Dolly. Because I love that movie, so yeah. Dolly never thought of herself as a movie star, but she was offered a role she couldn't refuse, playing someone very much like herself. The famous actress Jane Fonda sent her a script for a movie that would be called 9 to 5. It was a comedy about 3 women who work for a terrible boss and how they get even with him. Dolly played a secretary, Dolly, who at the end of the movie, became a country western singer. Becomes a country western singer. On the first day, Dolly arrived at the film studio in Los Angeles with the entire script memorized. Not just her own part, but everybody else's too. Dolly thought movie making was fun, and she threw herself into it. Every day she came to work at 4 a.m. in full makeup and wig. Then a studio makeup artist would completely redo her makeup for the cameras. Dolly wrote a theme song for the movie on the back of her script. The song was also called 9 to 5. When the movie came out in 1980, the song became #1 of the pop and country charts. The movie was a box office hit too. Well, where am I? So, right here. The next big movie Dolly made was not as much fun. Some of the actors and the director were hard to work with, but for Dolly, the biggest problem with making movies was all the waiting around. She had too much energy for that. Even so, Dolly kept on the lookout for other movie roles. In 1989, she starred in another film with top actresses such as Shirley MacLaine and Julia Roberts. Steel Magnolias was about a close group of friends who gather in a beauty shop in Louisiana. The women stick together through ups and downs. It's a funny movie, but a tearjerker. Dolly actually learned to cut hair to prepare for her role as a hairdresser. Dolly said the part was exactly who she would have been if she had stayed home and had no singing career. Other movies Dolly starred in include Rhinestone 1984, Straight Talk 1992, and Joyful Noise 2012, or formerly known as 2012 or whatever. With the singer and actress Queen Latifah. In 1980, Dolly signed a big contract to do shows for 6 weeks a year in Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas hotels host flashy shows with major stars. Dolly's shows were spectacular in spite of voice trouble and weight. Unfortunately, Dolly was trying to do too much. Her health was suffering and she felt really low. She didn't even feel like playing her guitar or writing songs for months. She needed a vacation, someplace quiet and far away, maybe Australia. However, when she arrived in quiet, faraway Australia, Dolly was mobbed by screaming fans. To escape, she rented a little houseboat off a remote island that sounded peaceful. However, her boat was caught in a huge storm. Dolly's high heels were washed overboard, and Dolly almost went with them. The vacation was not a vacation at all. Dolly returned to the United States to do a 35-show tour. She was overtired and often sick. In 1982, Dolly ended up in the hospital for some minor surgery. She knew she had to learn to take better care of herself, but she just couldn't slow down. Dolly made a very successful family movie for TV, A Smoky Mountain Christmas, released in year 1986. The story was sort of like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but the story was also in part of Dolly herself. It told of a lonely, stressed-out singer who retreats to a log cabin in the mountains and finds 7 orphans there. Dolly wrote many of the songs in the movie. In 1988, Dolly had a new TV variety show on ABC, Dolly. It did well at first, but it seemed outdated. Well, what do you know? Well, the jokes were a little too corny, and Dolly and her guests seemed as if they were trying too hard to have fun. The show was a disappointment to Dolly, except for the appearance of one very important guest, Porter Wagner. Dolly and Porter had a wonderful TV reunion. Dolly put aside their old arguments and treated him with all the respect due to the man who played such an important part in her career. Of course, Dolly was still churning out hit pop songs, but now Dolly wanted to return to her roots in country music. She recorded an album of country and folk music with singers Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt. It was called Trio and was nominated for the Album of the Year Grammy Award and won the Grammy Award for Best Country Performance by a duo or group with vocal, or whatever it is. Partly because that music was the kind she'd grown up with, Dolly said that Grammy was a high point in her life. Chapter 8, Dollywood Dolly, because I know that it was similar than Chapter 7, Hollywood Dolly, but Hollywood and Dollywood rhyme, because Dollywood rhymes with Hollywood. So, anyways, let's get started, shall we? Okay, so, right here we start at Dolly Parton is talented in so many different ways. She is also a very smart businesswoman. People call her the Iron Butterfly. That means she looks delicate but is tough. In 2004, the Wall Street Journal called her one of the most important women in the world for business and industry. Dolly runs a huge group of businesses called Dolly Parton Enterprises. She had her own She has had her own record, movie production, and music publishing companies. She even owns theme parks. She has invested in real estate, restaurants, dinner theaters, radio stations, farm equipment, hardware stores, garden centers, and macadamia nuts. Dolly makes sensible and intelligent business decisions. Many years ago, Elvis Presley wanted to buy the rights to her song, I Will Always Love You. Elvis would have owned it, but Dolly said no. Since then, she has made millions of dollars on just that one song. Many performers have recorded it, and the version by Whitney Houston is the most famous. According to Dolly, that one has made so much money that Dolly could have bought Graceland, Elvis's home. Of all her businesses, Dolly is proudest of Dollywood. That is her theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, near where she grew up. It's like a big country fair. There are merry-go-rounds, roller coasters, and bumper cars in the carnival. There's a theater where some of Dolly's relatives perform. Nearby people Dolly calls skillbillies. This demonstrate country skills like blacksmithing, weaving, glass blowing, and leather working. There's even a steam-powered sawmill and a life-size mountain homestead. The Southern Gospel Hall of Fame is there too. Nearby is Dollywood's Splash Country, Tennessee's largest water park, and Dolly's Dixie Stampede, a dinner theater she touts is the most fun place to eat in the Smokies. With over 4 million visitors a year, Dollywood and Splash Country have created a lot of jobs for local people. Money from the parks help fund the Dollywood Foundation. It is a charity that inspires kids to read and stay in school. Dolly Parton never liked school much, but she understands the importance of a good education. In Sevier County, Tennessee, a lot of kids were dropping out of high school. Through the Dollywood Foundation, Dolly started giving students $500 if they graduated. $500 if they graduated. That cut the dropout rate in half. The foundation also provided scholarships, computer labs for schools, and clothes and school supplies for needy kids. Dolly had seen how not being able to read had held her back. Her dad. In 1996, Dolly started her imagination library. It gave a book a month to every child in Sevier County from birth to school age. Since then, more than 60 million books have been handed out in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. Kids call Dolly the Book Lady. She's proud to be known by that name. Then in 2009, she got an honorary doctorate from the University of Tennessee. So now she's also Dr. Dolly Parton. Okay, 2 more chapters, you kids. Okay. Dolly has supported the Red Cross, HIV/AIDS, the charities, hospital charity, and charities for animals like the American Eagle Foundation. She believes in the right of gay people to marry and says so, which caused her trouble with some fans. But Dolly puts her beliefs first. Her motto is dream more, learn more, care more, and be more. And we stop there. Okay, chapter 9. and we have one more chapter left. So here we go. Chapter 9, The Living Legend. The Living Legend award from the Music City News had been given to many of Dolly's heroes, like Johnny Cash and Tammy Wynette. In 1994, Dolly won it! The same year, while still making hit records, she published an autobiography, a children's book, and started her own recording label, Blue Eye Records. She worked with other stars, young and old, such as Loretta Lynn, Neil Diamond, and Billy Ray Cyrus, similar to Miley Cyrus, whose daughter, Miley, is Dolly's goddaughter. I like it when I see that. Ooh, Country Music Hall of Fame. Dolly is never afraid to try something new. Dolly is never afraid to try something new. She has worked with non-country artists like Rod Stewart, Elton John, and Norah Jones. She did an album of patriotic songs called For God and Country. She also did albums that included 60s hits like John Lennon's Imagine. Dolly went back to her roots again and made very successful bluegrass albums. She even sang a bluegrass version of Carl's favorite Led Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven. Though Carl was honest and told her he didn't like it. Between recording sessions, Dolly and Carl sometimes got away with their dog in a camper van, staying in motels, and eating in diners. Dolly would go in disguise. She wore no makeup. However, even when she wasn't working, Dolly couldn't stop being creative. On one three-week vacation, Dolly wrote 37 songs. In 1999, Dolly was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Usually, the award is given to people at the end of their career, but not Dolly. She was only 56 and she was just getting rolling. In her acceptance speech, Dolly joked, I thought you had to be ugly or dead to get in. Sadly, a short time later, Dolly's father, Lee, died at age 79. Oh dear, that's not good after all. She said he was the best daddy. She said he was the best daddy a bunch of kids could ever have. Dolly dedicated an album to him, Little Sparrow. Only 3 years later, Dolly's mom, Avie Lee, died and was buried next to Lee. How wonderful that her parents lived long enough to see Dolly's big dreams come true. Far more than a popular performer, Dolly has come to be valued as a national treasure. In 2004, Dolly received her second Living Legend Award, a medal from the U.S. U.S. Library of Congress. It honors people who have made America a better place, like children's book author Maurice Sendak, astronaut Sally Ride, General Colin Powell, cellist Yo-Yo Ma, and entertainer Billy Cosby. Then in 2005, Dolly was invited to the White House, where President George W., also known as President George Washington Bush, would present her with the National Medal of Arts. In the United States, it's the highest award an artist can receive, but Dolly had to pick up her award later. She was doing a concert in Oklahoma, and as always, performing for her fans came first. How Dolly makes an album. Well, here's an example. For a new album, Dolly may come into the recording studio with about 25 new songs. She will sing and play them on guitar with the help of people in the studio. She narrows the number of songs down to 12 or so. A producer then writes out the song for the studio musicians. Dolly will sing for them so they get the idea of what. A producer then writes out the songs for the studio musicians. Dolly will sing for them so they get the idea of what she wants. Then the musicians add their own ideas and rehearse for about a week. Finally, Dolly and the musicians are able to record together, sometimes 2 songs in a day. Making an album doesn't happen overnight. And the last chapter is chapter 10, Still Dreaming. From the beginning, Dolly Parton wanted to perform live for a crowd. The joy of sharing her musician has never left, she says. It's a love fest with me and my audience. Her fans give her energy. She has toured almost every year since 2002. In 2011, also known as 2011, she had a very successful tour in Australia. You might wonder why people halfway around the world from Tennessee would be so crazy for a country music star. Dolly's honest personality and her songs are universal. Everybody experiences the same kinds of joy and pain in life. Dolly is still recording, writing, touring, and appearing on TV. Recently, she published a book, Dream More, where she shares her thoughts about life. She still looks glitzy. She still looks glitzy, but is as down to earth as ever. Similar than Wall-E's song in the end credits of Wall-E. No one works hard. No one works harder, and no one has more fun. She has a million ideas and always keeps a pencil and paper handy to write them down. Dolly Parton is still dreaming big. What are her dreams now? She says she wants to write more books and do music for children. She wants to write a Broadway musical based on her life. She wants to own her own cosmetics company and more. In her late 60s, she still has the energy of 10 people. Dolly says, the older I get, the earlier I get up. She won't stop working. It's what she loves. Her wish is to keep performing and die in the middle of a song on stage with a smile on her face at age 120, also known as at age 120. Dolly Parton has made a lot of money and given away a lot of money. Famous around the world, she never has strayed from her roots. On the lawn in front of a courthouse in Sevierville, Tennessee, bears a life-size bronze statue of her. It was put there by the people who knew her best. The statue is of young barefoot Dolly in rolled up jeans sitting on a rock with her guitar, dreaming. I think that's pretty cool, you kids. And that's it. If you like the story, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to click the notifications bell. Not bell. Sorry, I said it by mistake. And anyways, please like my videos and subscribe to my channel. And good night. It's getting late.